You are listening to Commission 6-8.
Welcome to a special edition of Commission 6-8. I'm your host, Randy Millette, and this morning I have with me Senator Bill Cassidy. Senator, thank you for your time.
Hey, Randy, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Senator Cassidy, your political career has been marked by significant achievements from your service in the Louisiana State Senate and your time representing Louisiana's 6th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives, to your election to the United States Senate in 2014, your re-election in 2020, and now your leadership as chairman of the Senate Help Committee, where you have driven efforts to lower health care costs, advance mental health reform, and secure coastal restoration projects for Louisiana families. And later, I'd like to touch on some policy topics and priorities. But first, I'd like to start with something more personal that I don't believe you've actually shared publicly before. On Christmas Eve in 2013, you walked into an AT&T store in Baton Rouge and had an encounter with my cousin who was working at the store. Throughout the conversation, you learned that my dad, my cousin's uncle, had hepatitis C and cirrhosis of the liver and was in need of a liver transplant. However, due to recent tests, they deemed him as a bad candidate for a liver, and he was removed from the transplant list. You learned all this from my cousin at the AT&T store, and you instructed my cousin to have my dad call you. So I wanted to ask, first of all, how much of this story do you remember? And do you remember what happened next?
I remember everything about that story. It was a total God thing, a total God thing.
Absolutely.
Now, for the people who are listening, I'm a liver doctor. The technical name is a hepatologist, but if you tell someone you're a hepatologist, they think you either do snakes or venereal disease. And so 2013, I go into the AT&T store, and I think I was with my daughter, getting her a phone, and we're just talking, your cousin and I, and you know, he's a good salesman. He's a really good salesman. I'm sure he sold us. But still, you learn about your customer. Oh, you're a doctor. What kind of doctor? A liver doctor. Really? Well, I got an uncle. Tell me the problem. And your father was being seen through the VA, and they had denied his transplant on something that I had never seen a transplant denied on before about. And it was interesting because I have referred a lot of patients for liver transplants, done a lot of workups for liver transplantation, maybe 400. I could imagine that through the course of my life. And so when I said I'd never seen a single one, maybe more than 400, that had been denied because of this, I'm speaking from a wealth of experience. And he gets me the records. I think he had been seen in Houston, VA. And in fact, I know he had been seen at Houston, VA. And they had denied him on a heart condition that was supposed to be meaning that he couldn't get his liver transplant. And I said, that's just not true. I mean, you need to get that checked out. And what I don't quite remember is whether he went to Ochsner or Ochsner had already evaluated him. But somehow, I think there was an evaluation there which confirmed my belief. I had your dad send me the records. Send me your records, Randy. Your father's name, Randy, too. I looked at the records, and I still didn't see the reason why there should be. So then, I'm a congressman then. So I contact the VA in Houston. I say, this patient is not in my congressional district, but he's in my state. He's a liver doctor. He's a liver patient, and I'm a liver doctor. And I've reviewed the records, and I don't see any validity in him not being transplanted. Boom! He gets transplanted.
Amazing.
And by the way, when I saw your dad, I saw him before his transplant. And for those on your podcast, if you've never seen an end-stage liver patient, they are swollen. They are more yellow than you can imagine a human being can be. They are confused. I could keep going, but they look like someone you've never seen before. And the great thing, Randy, I saw your dad like 6 months after his transplant. I had no clue who the guy was, because there was no fluid in his belly. There was no yellowness in his skin. He was sharp as a tack. I mean, the guy looked like a normal human being. And I'm like, who is this guy? this is Randy Millette. He had his transplant. He looks fantastic. So anyway, just to say all that, I remember the story vividly.
Yeah, well, I remember when we got the call, it was actually December 5th in 2014. We get the call from Houston. We had to pack up in the middle of the night and drive to Houston, and he was rushed right into surgery, got his transplant. And that's all a result of that one chance encounter of you walking into the AT&T store. And credit to you, not just hearing a story and going about your life, but actually getting involved in doing something. So,
Well, Randy, I'm going to disagree with
obviously,
one thing.
yes, sir.
That was not a chance meeting. That was God ordained.
Amen.
My
Absolutely.
daughter had warned me out to get her a new phone on the exact day that your cousin was working there and needed to make a good sale.
Well, I wanted to bring that up and give you an opportunity to share that and share that with the listeners because, people think that they know politicians and people might think that they know Senator Bill Cassidy, but I wanted to share, the story about my dad's friend that saved his life. So,
Yeah,
thank
I'll
you.
say one more thing. It's just the way I'm wired. Every day I wake up and I think, what can I do for my country, my state, and the people who live there? And that's just what I focus on. And when something like that stumbles across, it's almost like, Randy, if you were going down the road and you saw an elderly person trip off the curb, you would help her back to her feet.
Of course.
Of course. In this way, it was a sense of me bringing my training that God had blessed me with the responsibilities and the influence of the office in which I was holding to call the VA. And when the VA gets a call from a member of Congress, they take that call a little bit more seriously. And then if the member of
That's
Congress
right.
happens to be a liver doctor, they're going to take it a little bit more seriously yet. And so it all worked out. What year? What? So I saw your dad. That was the 24th,
2013,
23rd, and he got transplanted when?
December 5th, 2014,
A year later.
a year
Boy,
later.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised your dad lived that long. He looked so awful.
So, me too, and my mom.
Yeah.
And, he's still pastoring today. He preaches every Sunday. And, every life that he touches and every message that he preaches, you've got a part in that.
No, isn't that great?
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to. I know you don't have much time, but I do want to get into some policy questions for you. And I'll start off as chairman of the Help Committee and a practicing physician, which we'll touch on. You've unveiled the Money and Value for Patients agenda, or the MVP agenda. What are the most important reforms in that plan, and how do you plan to advance them in 2026?
So Randy, let's just put a real point on it. People that they have a bucket of money in their household budget, and they pay for groceries, gasoline, and health care. Now, right now, all three of those are really high. And so, what I'm trying to do is relieve the pressure on that family budget by doing something about healthcare. What can you do about healthcare? President Trump and I were both saying about a year ago we should be giving money to the patient and not to the insurance company. Now, why would that be? When you give the money to the insurance company to insure you, the patient, they take at least 20% of it for profit and overhead.
Right.
So you get $1,000 to the insurance company. There's going to be $800 spent on your care. If we give $1,000 to you, $1,000 will be spent on your care. So you're already getting more money that way. So what my plan is for middle income families getting insurance through their employer. Let's give them $1,000. Let's give them, a family of four would get $2,000 probably, or about that, $2,000. That would bypass the insurance company, go into an account, money in your pocket, M for MVP, money in your pocket to pay your out-of-pocket cost. Next, we're pushing hard for price transparency, and I've already passed legislation for price transparency. And so for the price transparency, if you pick up your phone, your daughter has an earache, you go to your app, urgent care centers near me, which one has the best price for a routine visit for an earache? Oh, this one's $50 and that one's $150. So with the money in your pocket, M, you get value for that money, the V. Money in your pocket brings value to the patient, the MVP
Amen.
plan.
Yeah.
That just starts to decrease the pressure on your budget. You could also, therefore, because you have money for those upfront costs, get a less expensive premium. And so it's estimated that we could save $3,000 to $5,000 per family on the cost of being insured with this system. And so bypassing the insurance company, giving you the dollar with the value for you, the patient, boom, let's help out your finances.
Absolutely. And not just that, but more value for the patient. And you've also worked on issues like surprise medical billing, right?
Yeah.
The No Surprise Act.
Yeah, so surprise medical billing is something that I worked on for 2 years. President Trump signed into law. It used to be that, for example, you, the patient, would go to the emergency room and it would be on your insurance plan as being in network. But the hospital doctors would not be on network. The EKG machine would not be in network. The radiologist would not be in network. And you get all these bills related to your care, even though the hospital was in your network. We changed that. If you go to the emergency room and it's an emergency, then boom, everything is considered as if it were in network.
Yep.
Also, we begin to require, I'm smiling, I'll tell you why, it'll come clear, begin to require that hospitals tell you the cost of an elective procedure before you get the elective procedure. So you go for a colonoscopy. You're too young for it, but imagine you're 50 years old, you need a colonoscopy, or 45. And you go in there and you've taken your prep. You're already, which means that you've taken everything to give you diarrhea, and you're hoping everything's out, but you're not sure. And we got a gown on, but your rear end is exposed. Yes, you're beneath the sheet, and they want you to sign a bunch of forms right before you have your colonoscopy. One of them says, in the bad old days, you would pay for anything the insurance company wouldn't. Now, they could be charging you $12,000 for the colonoscopy. The insurance company pays $2,000, and you're stuck with $10,000 because you
Right.
signed a form when you're butt naked, about to have diarrhea, going in for a colonoscopy.
They could be
We
charging you $12,000 for the gown.
Yes, we stopped that.
Right.
And so they're required to tell you up front, this is how much it's going to cost. This is how much the insurance company is going to cover. And you can say, wait a second, that's too expensive. Is there a cheaper place to have my colonoscopy? Oh yeah, down the street. I'll take you there. It's going to cost you $2,000. It's a wash with the insurance company.
Right. So this is a topic I really want to get your take on, and it's coming up recently. So you've led hearings and investigations into chemical abortion drugs, like mifepristone. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Mifepristone. Calling for the restoration of safeguards such as in-person dispensing and a full FDA safety review. And now we see this case working its way up the courts. So my question is, how do you anticipate this playing out, and what result would you like to see?
So I'll give a little context.
Sure.
I'm pro-life. So, but what I'm saying would be acknowledged by people who are not pro-life. That it used to be that if somebody was going to get a chemical abortion drug prescribed for them, they'd have to see the doctor in person. The doctor would do an ultrasound to make sure that the patient, the woman who's pregnant, would be appropriate for the medication. You're not supposed to take it after 11 weeks. Why? Because the baby in the womb gets so big that if you take it at week 20, and the abortion pill causes the death of the baby, it can't get through the cervix. And you end up having to have, hemorrhage or infection or a trip to the emergency room, but you're not supposed to take it after a certain number of weeks of pregnancy. What has happened is that some states allow abortion drugs to be prescribed without the doctor ever seeing the patient. So the ultrasound is never done. No one knows how old or how big that fetus is.
Right.
Sometimes a boyfriend or a mother is getting the pills and
Wow.
forcing or tricking the woman who's pregnant into taking the medicine.
Wow.
So you combine it. There's lawsuits about this, by the way. Court
Right.
cases. So the boyfriend doesn't want the pregnancy, gets the pill, sneaks it in her food, but she's week 20. And so now, not only does she have a dead baby in her womb, the baby's too big to get through her cervix, and she has to go to the emergency room with infection or hemorrhage with potential complications. That's what's happening now. We're trying to stop that.
Yeah, and like I said, we saw it's working its way through the courts, and I believe SCOTUS just put another stay on it. But interesting to see how that and that's a huge issue to me. Coming up to the midterms, that's one of the key things that I've been focusing on, and I've been saying if the right loses the midterms, we're in for a whole another abortion fight and other things. So I'd like to move on with the whole Fentanyl Act and the Support Act. Now law, how do you measure success in combating the opioid and fentanyl crisis in Louisiana and the nation, and what more is needed?
So you measure success by having fewer people dying from fentanyl.
Right.
Now, in a sense, if you have fewer people dying, that means fewer people are getting fentanyl. Now, the two bills you mentioned are bills that I wrote that President Trump signed into law 4 or 5 months ago. I lose track of time. One, the Halt Fentanyl Act, gives law enforcement more tools to fight against the cartels bringing fentanyl into our country. The Support Act, gives support for those patients, those fellow Americans who have serious mental illness and addiction, because they often go together. And so, one, you're going after the cartels. Two, you're helping the patient. We have seen, because of these bills and other things we've done, like controlling the border, the number of deaths from fentanyl down, I'm told, by as much as 60%.
Wow.
So we are making progress in addressing fentanyl. One fentanyl death is one too many.
That's right.
But still, we're making progress, and we want to not just stop the death, we also want to stop the addiction. We want to stop the drug from coming into our country. And that's our big push, and we're getting success. Frankly, President Trump has signed into law my bills. I've supported him on his efforts to control the border. We're making progress.
So you've backed efforts on border security, including the Lake and Riley Act. How effective do you think current immigration enforcement changes have been, and what additional measures do you support?
Yeah, so clearly it's been effective. Under Joe Biden's open border policy, we had like 10 million people come in 4 years, crossing the border illegally. With President Trump and with the Republican Congress supporting him, giving the resources necessary, that's been cut almost to zero. It's just incredible.
Incredible.
And by the way, human trafficking was involved, drug trafficking was involved. All that has been addressed. And so we've made a lot of progress. There is still a lot of illegal goods being shipped in. Now, when you ship in something illegally, that's an illegal good that steals jobs from the American worker. Instead of buying something from an American factory, you end up buying something shipped in illegally. They don't pay taxes on it. It's made with labor, which undercuts our labor. So I would like to broaden what we're doing from just stopping people from coming in, which we've succeeded, getting the criminals out, which we're succeeding, but also stopping the illegal goods, which is a way that the drug cartels make a lot of money. It's a way that undercuts American jobs. I'm all about better paying jobs and more jobs for the American worker. I think that's the next thing we do.
Again, Senator Cassidy, I can only imagine how busy you are, and thank you for your time. Lastly, as you are well aware, to our listeners, we have the primary coming up May 16th, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to just tell us how important it is for everyone to get out to vote and to make your case to Louisiana voters.
Yeah, I really appreciate Randy being on with you. And of course, again, a special connection with your family. I always will have. This election is about the present and the future of Louisiana. Who has worked most effectively to make our state a better place, and who will continue to work effectively, who has a proven track record of delivering? That candidate is me. Why do I say that? Look at what I've done. In one bill alone, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, I brought $13.5 billion with a B, dollars to our state. 6.2 billion of that for roads and bridges. Actually, even more because we brought more since. Hundreds of millions of dollars to decrease risk of flooding. Hundreds of millions of dollars for coastal restoration. For example, the levee being built between New Orleans and La Place. You see it off the I-10. I got $300 million for. The levee in the Bayou region, $600 million for the Morganza to the Gulf. but also for the ports and for water and for sewer. Most recently, the Trump administration released $1.35 billion from that bill that I negotiated to make sure that everyone has access to high-speed, affordable internet. Think of all the jobs being created. Now, my opponents, the two people running against me, opposed a bill that brought us $13.5 billion. Think about that. They opposed a bill that has brought us good paying jobs, more good paying jobs, and addressing issues such as risk of flooding, and I could go down the list. I've worked well with President Trump. He has signed into law 4 bills that I either wrote or negotiated, and they're part of a bigger bill over the last several months. My opponents have never had a single bill signed into law. Think about that. The Congresswoman has never had a single bill signed into law. I've had dozens, including 4 in the last several months by President Trump. I have delivered for Louisiana. Now, some people want to focus on the past. They don't like me because of something I've done. Well, you're always going to find something that somebody does you don't like. But if you focused on the present and the future, and who's going to make our state a place where your children and grandchildren, where you are more likely to find success, than I've been delivering for our state. So, Randy, thank you for allowing me to make that pitch. The election is this Saturday. If you're no party, you can still vote in the Republican primary. You just need to ask for a Republican ballot when you go in.
Very important to know. Again, May 16th. Make sure you get out and vote. Vote in primary. Even if you no party, you can ask for a Republican ballot and vote in the primary. And Senator Cassidy, thank you again for your time and good luck.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir.
This has been Commission 6-8.